Hey everybody, welcome back to Spearfactor. Today's guest is Max Mossler. I got in contact with Max from Dr. Ray, which you guys might have listened to that podcast. He works with Dr. Ray, and so I'm delighted to have him on here and get his perspective. He's also a diver. So welcome to the show, Max.
Thanks so much for having me, Brett.
Yeah. Right before we started recording, though, we were talking. We always jump into the background, so I guess just go your whole background of where were you born, where are you from, how,
Sure.
education and all that stuff, how you
hmm
got kind of linked into diving.
Into diving. Sure. So I was born and raised in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. I ended up going to Arizona State for undergrad, and while I was there, I knew like going into college, I had one goal, which was I wanted to do coral reef research. And so I spent a semester abroad on an island called Bonaire, which is in the Caribbean. It's not too far from Aruba, right off the Venezuelan coast. So I spent like 5 or 6 months there doing underwater research. I was doing like a lot of scuba fish survey stuff. Just totally fell in love with it. Was living on just like a great Caribbean island with a bunch of friends. And fell in love with the water, fell in love with being underwater, and like we used to go scuba diving all the time, and then I started just free diving on my own, just around the coral reef because it's like a fringing yeah, it's a fringing reef there, so it's just right offshore, just a short swim out. Um, was going to school to become a medical doctor. Like I was pre-med everything, and just I was going because I knew I wanted like research experience to put on my like med school application, but gave up med school dreams to like pursue conservation essentially. Um, and then I decided to like pursue that. And so I went to graduate school at the University of Washington shortly after I finished undergrad. Um, and I studied environmental policy. Basically, I just wanted to, yeah, I wanted to make the ocean a better place, essentially. And while I was there, I all my research was in climate change related things, climate change communication, generally, like how do people think about climate change? How do people's thoughts about climate change influence policy and policy directions? And then I got linked up with, and I was like partially in the fisheries department. I got linked up with Ray Hilborn, um, and he was sort of looking for someone who knew the science of like communication stuff, and then to do fisheries communication instead. So started doing that, and then moved back to LA, where I was already like my love of scuba diving and diving had grown. And then in LA, I do you know Lance Lee Davis?
Super deep diver.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. So
Diving.
Lance,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, this was many years ago. Um, Lance became a very good friend of mine, and I took like his advanced classes, and then we started training together pretty regularly, off his little boat. We were going for a good solid like at least a year. He was like the two of us would go out at least once a week, so we became very good friends. Just got really into free diving. Um, I ended up moving to Mexico to Playa del Carmen to become like a freediving instructor. So I was an instructor for a while there, just like not like a real like I worked for a shop, but I was just sort of their like backup instructor. Like I was been working for Ray the whole time.
Okay,
Um,
so this was during your like in the summer during research or something like or
so just to back up once, like after I got linked up with Ray to start this communication project, and then I graduated from UW, but the communication project continued, and I couldn't. I couldn't live in Seattle full time just because it's it was too gray for
Understand.
me. It's a beautiful, beautiful city, but too gray for me. So, but Ray and I have worked remotely together since then. So we have no problem communicating via email and our weekly Zoom calls and stuff. Um, and yeah, he blessed me with permission to move to Mexico and just pursue my competitive freediving dreams, which I did. This was all before the pandemic started, so this was like 2018
Okay.
and 2019.
Did you
Uh,
did you get a PhD or a master's?
no, this was a master's. I
Okay.
thought about doing a PhD.
Yeah, the juice
Ended up,
isn't worth the squeeze sometimes, depending on
yeah,
what you want to do, I guess, right?
yeah. I was a little, yeah. In the field that I really wanted, this is like if anyone young is listening, like the best advice I ever heard about grad school is go to grad school to get a job that you want. Don't go to grad school just to go.
Yeah, so
So
my
that was,
son,
yeah,
yeah, my son is in that situation now, and unfortunately I don't have much experience other than my younger buddies, that younger minions, friends of mine that are just either graduated grad school or, and yeah, it's a weird time. I mean, not to get off topic, but it's a weird time in a young man or woman's life
for
where it's
sure,
like, what do you want to do the rest of your life?
for sure.
I feel like undergrad was a little bit like that, but
Yeah,
you always have that goal in mind of your dream job and trying to attain it, and then the steps to do it, and then that goal shifts sometimes. Like you said, you wanted to be a doctor, my son wants to be
hmm,
a surgeon, and it's like, okay, well, do you really want to be in school for then you just fall in
yeah,
love with other things.
yeah. I think life,
Yeah.
it's like so many young people just don't have like the life experience.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to be a doctor from when I was very young, and it was just like the only thing in my head because I hadn't really experienced the world.
Right.
Um, and then I guess in between all that was like I took a gap year after undergrad and I just like traveled Southeast Asia. I was like a pretty classic dirty backpacker. But I was just like I was going to like the thing that was motivating me was just like I would just end up in these very obscure places hanging out with fishermen. I did like a lot of like funny little like small scale fishing on these very remote islands in Indonesia and the Philippines. And I was just like diving. I just wanted to free dive and scuba dive as much as I possibly could. Um, so that was a big factor in me not
That's the
not
part
going.
that
Yeah.
that's what I love though. Through my job, I always end up in obscure places like that aren't touristy,
Yeah.
and you see like the absolute root of everything. Like you see it as pure as it is what it is, because you're not getting that mask of tourism or
Hmm.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And it was that was like when I was a 2013, 2014. So it was also before Instagram, which is that was traveling before Instagram was a very different experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is
So,
true. I mean, I think with social media, Instagram, the connections is like it's much easier to make connections before you go,
but yeah.
but then also it's also easy to completely blow up places to where they might be unheard
Yeah.
of, and then an algorithm gets
Yeah.
a hold of it, and then yeah, um,
Yeah. Yeah, that happens with plenty of
yeah,
places that I was at, which was fun. Or not fun, but
yeah.
it's like it's nice that so many people could see all the cool places now and like
It is nice.
yeah. Yeah.
There is this weird thing about it where you realize that tourism can improve people's lives, but there's this happy medium where
Hmm.
they could get exploited too.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you bring money and prosperity, if you will, or just bring, I guess, a little money to bring some comfort to certain areas that maybe could use the benefit of schools or whatever they are? And
Yeah.
how do you do that without completely letting modern civilization get a hold of it and just go,
Yeah.
yeah, alter the whole culture? Um, well, okay, so how was the whole living in Playa del Carmen? How was that?
It was awesome. It was exactly what I wanted. I had some really good friends there. Because I had like a real job with Ray and working for University of Washington. I I basically was a super backup instructor. I would work like once or twice a month for a shop down there called Amankai Freediving, um, which is I was the only. It was like female owned and operated, and I was like the only guy. It was really fun for me. Um, it was great, but that got me. It was a great experience. I made so many good friends. And the community there is extremely strong. Um, the cenotes that everyone dives in are a little like complicated because they're all privately owned generally, or most of them are privately owned. Uh, and so it's always this like push and pull of just like where can you train without, yeah, just like there's not a lot like the instructors and like teaching a class always gets priority. So
Uh-huh. Is that
everyone's
because
sort of,
they're on people's lands? Like
yeah.
people's basically the private
Yeah,
property and then they
it's
happen
on
to have
private
that.
land. Yeah, some
Okay.
of there are some on public land, but not many that are great for free diving. So not many that have like the depth.
Well, what would you say, the times training with Lance and then in Playa, like what would you say was some big tools or takeaways or things that you could use to improve? I mean, I've been pretty open about it. I'm a terrible free diver.
Mm,
I don't know if I'm old and tight and nothing wants to flex. So like trachea squeezes were a big thing for me. But what would
same.
you say like are things that you noticed or that helped you or you know what I mean?
Mm, one thing I would say is definitely diving with a lot of people is really good. So I developed with Lance. So before I moved to Mexico, I was like a Lance diver. It was like very and I come from like I had like competitive sports my whole life. So I came from like how would I describe diving with Lance? It's like calculated and very
Methodical.
rational. Yeah, yeah, methodical. Um, I I believe in like pushing yourself. I like even as an instructor, I believe in that. And then I moved to Playa, which is I was working with a shop of all women, and I was diving with a lot of women, and their philosophy was more like go based on feel, like what do you feel like doing, like get in touch with like the inner calm, that sort of a thing. And that was very new for me because I was just been like my breathe ups with Lance were just like, all right, slow my heart rate, like slow down, do everything you need to do to slow down, and then when everything's slowed down, then dive. When I moved to Playa, my breathe ups became more just like, all right, relax, like relax everything inside everything. So it wasn't necessarily like slow down; it was more relax. But I like merged that with my like push yourself. Like I definitely believe in just in pushing yourself, and I think in the free like that's yeah in the freediving community, especially like yeah, depending on where you are, there's so many different approaches, and I think where I was in Playa was a lot of like Tulumi, like
More
feeling.
spiritual.
Yeah, spiritual
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and I definitely I like that. I think that's good. That's important. But I was definitely interested in like I wanted to push myself as far as I could.
What sport was your background in?
I played basketball. I played pretty competitive basketball and throughout like my whole life through high school. I wanted to play in college, and then I had an injury my senior year. I wouldn't have played in like D1 or anything. I wanted to play in like a D3 school, but
Yeah. I understand. My daughter
That's
plays
definitely,
basketball in college.
yeah.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely like my competitive background.
Okay. Well, it's funny because that what you're describing to me is not uncommon at all. And I know exactly what you're talking about because I have a competitive background too. And people always say, before you dive, I've trained with me like enjoy the dive. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I have never enjoyed one dive. Like I am just, where is the goal? How do I get there? Let's go. But the what my friend told, I've said this before, my friend was like, people like us die doing this because we push ourselves. So we have to like being so competitive with yourself, you have to catch that and try to make that not inhibit you from relaxing. So that was the one thing. But I'm very goal orient, you have a number in mind, which you shouldn't, all these things. I'm like, no, man. Like, uh, it's, I guess it's funny that you Brent mentioned that because I've seen it with my kids when I've tried to teach them how to like hold their breath really long and they get all amped up. They're like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, you have to stop doing all of that and calm down. Um, and I think if you're a competitive person, your natural instinct is to kind of like do that um, more than relax and just, feel how you feel. I'm like, I don't know. Right now, I just want to get down there and do this. Like, so that,
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard Lance, maybe I should have Lance on the show because what,
Definitely.
the people that don't know Lance does a thing called like freediving Everest,
Oh,
right? Where,
I was one of his safeties when he did that. Yeah.
yeah. And basically the goal is to freedive a number of
Hmm.
feet for Everest high in a day, right? Or something.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
you should have him on.
I'd be like
He's
60
crazy. Lance
feet.
is crazy.
Okay. 70 feet. All right. 80. And I
And
want to go back to 40. Yeah, you'd be there for a while. I mean, just you think about that, people don't realize you can get bent free diving and the amount of nitrogen in doing that. There's gotta be, yeah, he's incredible. Yeah.
you
And
gotta
this
have
is
him on.
all
Lance is the man.
yeah, I've never even talked to him personally either. I just have friends that know him and watched his stuff. And I was like, I'm conceptually thinking about freediving Everest. I'm like, man, like, yeah. And then you see some of his posts or something. I'm like, wait, what does that number say? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That ain't me.
he's crazy. He's super
So
cool.
how do you kind of transition from freediving into spearfishing? I mean, obviously a
I
lot of us
so
have done that.
I kind of did the opposite, honestly. I like I after I was in Bonaire and I was in LA, I just started going out and uh I lived on Catalina for a summer, Catalina Islands. I was like a snorkel guide, so I got
Nice.
very familiar with the kelp forests, and just like bought a spear gun off of Craigslist and just started going. And then that is what sort of got me to take a class with Lance because I was like, I'm a really good diver, but I hear about people dying doing this. Like, let me just take a class just to like be safe. And then I I did that with Lance and dived. That was my first time ever like diving on a line, and I fell in love with diving on a line, more so than spearfishing. Like I love spearfishing. I still enjoy it, but I fell in love with diving on a line, and that became just everything for me. Diving on a line.
Why do you think that is?
Um, the way I described it, the way I describe freediving, like when as an instructor, and like if I'm trying to convince someone to take a class, is freediving is the first thing I've ever found that is measurable brain training. In that, I think anybody off the street has the ability to go to 40 meters, like no problems at all, to like 40 meters before residual volume. Um, and the only thing stopping you is your brain. You have to learn the techniques, and there's just such a mental block for most people, and there was for me as well. Like 40 meters was such a large number when I first started freediving. And I loved the idea of it being like, oh, like I did 35, now I could do 36. Now my brain is good enough to take me to 37. Now my brain is good enough to take me to 38. And it's just like, so there's like this number that is like attached to your brain, and just like being able to relax and get into like the zone of just like that meditative feeling that you get when you're free falling, that every freediver knows what I'm talking about.
Well, that's so interesting because if anybody hears, free dive, which I'm assuming you are if you're listening to the podcast, or just diving, your brain has like my buddy on some of the therapy I've done where it's like your brain has triggers to protect itself. It has the same thoughts, 80% or something like that, the same thoughts every day. There's hard codes in your brain to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, you live this day. And so we learn from here. So the next day, I want you to do the same code and to live again. And a lot of that with like post traumatic stress and things like that. But I feel like what you're saying is that you're exactly right. When you're free diving, you can actually hear those codes in your head like, hey, it's 70 feet. You're supposed to turn around now. And then it's like, what
Mm-hmm.
are you doing? And I'm just I remember this, my own thing when I did the advanced class and I was stuck at like, I could dive 60 feet all day long, spearfishing, no problem, all day long. At like 70, like, well, can't, can't do that. And
Mm-hmm.
then, like in the advanced class, we're going to 85 or whatever it was, 90 or, and I remember those mental triggers kicking in when I hit the depths that I could see. I feel like I just keep kicking. Why am I going? I keep going and everything is fine. Like no pressure issues, nothing. Everything's totally fine. And then you stop and you're sitting there at whatever depth, for anybody. And you're sitting there, you're holding on, and you're just like looking around. And I did it in Guam, so it was like really pretty. But you're like, there's no boogeyman here. Like, and then you come up, there's no scary, like, there's nothing, but your brain is telling yourself, like, you're supposed to turn around. You're supposed to turn around. Turn around. And that is one of the things you said. It is totally a measurable brain thing because it is. I think it's like retraining your brain, forming new neural pathways to say, this is okay. You're comfortable doing this. The only thing I've ever found is really like maybe physical issues, like with my trachea and maybe I could have done something wrong or like flexibility was a big thing for me.
That's my limiter as well.
Yeah. But I love what you just said. That's so true. It's like measurable brain. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very cool.
yeah, that's what I fell in love with. And that do you do much like diving on a line?
Um, I I have at moments like I haven't lately, but let's see. Um, I would go out on Sundays with the guys that just get wet. If anybody
Mm-hmm.
ever
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
heard me talk about
There's
with
yeah.
Chris and those guys,
Mm-hmm.
and I did um when I was actually working through a trachea issue. Well, I believe maybe I just got done with Ted Hardy's like 28-day free dive transformation, and it's
Mm-hmm.
most all dry training and all that. And then I went out and dove deeper. I'd say more comfortably deeper than I have in years. And so I went and did the line training in La Jolla on Sundays with those guys. Um, yeah, it's hard. I would say this. I should do more of it. When I was in Guam, we did it 3 days a week in the morning, 3 days a week. But at
That's
home,
awesome.
it's like I only have so much time and I
Yeah.
rather would spearfish.
No,
But
yeah, I totally get it.
no, but um it would probably make
California
spearfishing a
is
lot better.
it's yeah, it's harder in California too, just because of the temperature.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but I love the yeah.
I
If
think it's one of
I
those
assume,
things. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I assume that you have like a lot of spearfishers who listen to the podcast. And it's like
Yeah, but
if they don't have a lot of experience diving on a line, like there's something magical that happens like past 20 meters, like when you're in negative buoyancy where you're just free falling through the water. That's like the feeling that I live for, that a lot of
It's
people who love line diving live for. I got
yeah.
addicted to that.
It's almost like I think like skydiving, that free fall, right?
Yes.
I think
Yes.
the thing that it is where again from I remember when I started hitting that, I remember my safety brain, my brain was like, you're just gonna fall and sink to the abyss. Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yep.
You know? And it's so crazy to like not kick because you just get going faster and faster and faster.
Yeah, it's
And
awesome.
I remember grabbing the end of the line and just like slingshotting, like
Mm-hmm.
it's such a cool feeling. But
It's the best. Yeah.
yeah. And then I think when I did my PR or whatever, it's one of those things where you don't even know you did it and you look at your watch and you're like,
Mm,
wow, like that felt like 30 feet. For those that suck at freediving, I use everything in feet because it makes me feel better.
mm,
So,
that's good. Yeah,
um,
I get it. I get it.
now, yeah, so that's very interesting. It does seem like people go one or two directions. I guess there's only two directions to go. So one or the other direction, I guess you could say. I've seen do the same exact what you're talking about. Spearfishermen spearfish and then move over to just free dive. They fall in love with it, and then vice versa. I would say for divers out here that want, I would say you want to get better at free diving, like you asked about line diving. I would say put the spear gun down for 3 months, as long as you can, and just line dive. And that's the only way I could do it because if I had a choice, I'm always going to go spearfishing.
Yeah. All right. That makes
Um,
sense.
but if you want to get better, you have to just forfeit, maybe even the wintertime. It's not great in California. So dive then.
Yeah.
Then you'll be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your diaphragm will get stretchy. Everything will get easier. You'll be more comfortable. Yeah. Um, so a little bit going back into the conservation thing, which I love, and because I've been going down this rabbit hole with conservation, not really a rabbit hole, but it's part of the show. But one thing that's kind of interesting to me too is how there can be two sides of the spectrum on conservation. Like the thing that kind of is wild to me is, and I guess I talked to Ray about it a little bit, is the difference of preservation versus conservation.
Mm,
Uh, was a big topic. But you had mentioned that you had did a lot of reading about global warming and things like that. And if you don't mind, I mean, could I get your opinion on it? Because for someone that's not in the know, you can only, I mean, I read what's interesting to me and I read a little bit about it, but my own opinion is like, I'm always skeptical of everything until, um, I see it, but I want, um, I guess I'd say I want like honest. I guess I'm not trying to. Okay, so basically, what's this is terrible. So I apologize. Basically, it's like you want to cut, just like the news, you want to cut through the bullshit and
mm-hmm.
what is really going on. And I've talked to so many people that have different opinions and they all claim to be in the know and they're all credible. So, like with you, like I was on a research ship, and the guys were telling their wives are PhDs. They're doing research on coral reefs in Panama and how climate change has affected that versus then and even in Point Loma, I'm like, I see the kelp, the kelp seems to be doing okay there as much, but like, I don't see this big change here or other people I've talked to or sea levels rising, maybe in Micronesia or certain places like
Mm-hmm.
that. What is your opinion on all this stuff? Like yeah.
Well, let's see. When I would talk about climate change, let's see. So the way that I think about climate change generally is that like the Earth will always be here. Um, always will be here, no matter well, until what, like 4 or 5 billion years when the sun engulfs it. But the Earth will always be here. And we're in like a very interesting time in Earth's like geologic ages. We've been in this like the Earth has been a lot hotter than it's been now, and the Earth has been a lot colder than it's been now. The climate has changed a ton over the course of Earth's history. What's really interesting about now is that the climate has been like relatively stable for many millions of years. And so a lot of cool animals have evolved to live in this climate, including us. Um, I believe there are, I'm almost positive that like right now, this is the most amount of biodiversity that has ever existed on Earth, ever. So like there is the most amount of biodiversity that ever existed right now because of this, partially because of this like very stable climate. Um, and by adding carbon to the atmosphere, well, Earth is a ball of energy. We absorb our energy from the sun, and then we radiate energy out. So like we are a black ball radiation, like a source of black ball radiation in space. We absorb a lot of that energy from the sun, and then we emit that energy. So think in terms of energy. That's how I think about how climate change works, is in terms of energy. We absorb energy from the sun, we let it out. That determines climate. That determines everything on Earth generally. When we emit more carbon into the atmosphere, the amount of energy that we radiate out into space is reduced. We contain more of that energy. Essentially, it's like a blanket that goes around the Earth, and carbon makes the blanket thicker, is a way to think about it. That's the greenhouse gas effect. That's what greenhouse gases do. And so we have more energy on Earth generally because of that's what climate change is doing. That's global warming in a nutshell. It's just there's more energy than the Earth has been used to for a really long time, and that energy goes into the ocean and it makes the ocean warmer. It goes everywhere and it makes most things warmer, but it different animals, different organisms evolved differently. So like kelp, I don't actually think kelp is like uh I'm not sure, but I don't think kelp is threatened by climate change at all, really.
Not even with
Um
like the global heat, like the heating of the ocean.
I don't think so. Like what you'll see yeah, I don't think so. There's some theories on well, because kelp dies back every year.
Right.
You know, kelp is like this yearly perennial kind of thing. It dies back every year and then comes back. And it's more dependent on like storms than anything.
Yeah.
Um,
The guys were
which
talking about, I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Guys were talking about so in Point Loma, I've seen a little bit, I've seen it kind of ebbs and flows sometimes. And in La Jolla, like this is my own
Yeah,
personal like field research,
no,
right?
yeah.
Like,
I grew up in Southern, yeah, like where I was
yeah.
living in
So
Redondo
it's like,
Beach. Yeah,
yeah, I haven't like, people are going to, but in Point Loma, I haven't really seen a lot of the kelp go away. I've seen it go away and come back, but I haven't seen like this overall. I can't say like, wow. But I've heard from credible friends that the bull kelp in Northern California were like really shredded. And I don't know if that's a function of the surf, which I know the surf comes and rips it all up. That's what creates kelp patties, the wind, and all that stuff. But I also know kelp grows real fast. I don't know about the bull kelp, but they swear it's been wiped out. But because he's like, yeah, I've also agreed. Like Southern California, it's not too bad down there. Well, Matt Bond is what I'm speaking about. He's like the bull kelp's wiped out.
I think that's because
Personally,
of
where
urchins.
yes, so that's another good point. And personally, where I live or where I lived, um, it's like the pollution is something that's we can fix now, that's totally attainable, that does affect a lot more than just kelp, the overall health of the ocean in the greater part of Southern California. And if anybody doesn't believe that, I can say
Oh, for sure.
when I was growing up, I never saw one beach closer due to like, that I remember, due to like bacteria and stuff. Now it's like a regular event with runoff and things like that. And this is, again, I'm 47, but I just don't remember seeing it to the if it was to the frequency that it is now. It's like, I remember going surfing, Ocean Beach, walk right past that sign pretty regularly and go surfing. That sign, I don't remember that sign being there. And maybe policies have changed where they're actually monitoring it now too. That's a big part.
Yeah.
But
That
it's
might be
just,
part of it. Yeah.
yeah, probably the majority of it. But it's just wild to me that I know there's things that we can change now easily, and maybe not that easily, but we can make improvements on now that help with the kelp stuffs particularly. But anyways, I'm getting off
Yeah.
track. Go
No,
ahead,
no,
please.
that's good. I think with the bull kelp in Northern California with the urchins is I don't know if it's climate change that's causing that. I know that that's been proposed as a theory. Um, and it's sort of like climate change, my one of my like criticisms of climate change communication is that it has become sort of this, it can just like sort of be this stand-in, like everything is how do I say this? It sort of becomes like a de facto thing to blame, whereas just like there still needs to be scientific inquiry. Like climate change is touching most biologic systems on Earth, but you still have to investigate like what is happening. Like what if it's not, like I've talked to some researchers who think it's basically like there's like fossil evidence of like these phase shifts that happen. Like they can take decades of like, it's like urchin barrens can last for decades, and then all the urchins die off and the kelp comes back, just like a what's the right word? What's the
Well, if their food source goes away because they wiped it
yeah,
out, then they all die.
yeah, but like sort of these regime changes can happen naturally. Um, like environmental conditions are responsible for a lot of like sardine and anchovy populations, that sort of a thing. Like it's nothing that we really control. It's more of like a nutrient flow thing. So it's not necessarily climate change. Um, I've I've seen, yeah, I'm not convinced that climate change is causing the bull kelp in Northern California to decline. It certainly may. It may be a factor. Um, but I do think like there is some evidence that environmental factors that are out of our control play a role. When it comes to climate change and fisheries and fish in general, what we are seeing is there's not going to necessarily be a change in the biomass of fish in the ocean. It's going to be more like there are some fish populations that benefit from climate change, and there's going to be some fish populations that decline because of climate change. Um, that's like some examples of fisheries that are benefiting from climate change, for example, would be like sockeye salmon in Bristol Bay. And that's because sockeye salmon in Bristol Bay is the biggest sockeye fishery, it's the biggest salmon fishery in the world. Salmon return and they spend their first year of life in this gigantic lake. And in the winter, ice covers the lake. And now with climate change, the lake ice is melting earlier and earlier in the year. So more sunlight hits the surface of the lake, which creates more food. And so the sockeye salmon enter, like they spend their first year in the lake. They get bigger and fatter than they would be otherwise. And then they have a much higher survival rate in the ocean, which is like, that's one example. Um, Climate change making fisheries worse. That's generally happening around the equator. Um, that's just because that's like those fish evolved to to yeah, just like the coral reefs evolved to be in that warm water, but too warm is not good. So
I've actually heard the exact same thing where like based on just talking to people, they all do their research coral reef base and it's like they're
yeah,
like the
cool.
sky is falling
Yeah,
and they
coral
have
reefs
like
are, yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Coral reefs are the most threatened ecosystem due to climate change, for sure, for sure.
very interesting.
Yeah.
No, I'm so glad you have that perspective because um that makes the most sense. And you've read, I mean, how much reading do you do on all this stuff? It's
A
almost like
lot.
your
I
shirt
read a
job.
lot. Yeah, that's my job. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So that would actually give validation to both groups of people where, I that makes the most sense because on one side you hear the sky's falling, the we're all doomed and we're dead. And then I'm being facetious, of course, but and then the other side, it's like nothing's changing. You guys are all crazy. Just want to take away all our fishing rights. Or,
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought this up. I like one of the things that Ray. So I definitely got into this like when I was a very young person. Just like I got into this because I wanted to, you know, I used to not eat fish. I had a professor tell me once that's just like the only thing. There's nothing you can't take anything out of the ocean. Like not taking anything out of the ocean is not sustainable. Um, Um, but I like when I went to graduate school and just my philosophy about it changed quite a bit. And like if you couldn't tell from our discussion earlier, I'm definitely like an optimizer and like rationality and like being calculated is important to me. And so I realized and learned that or like my philosophy evolved to the point where it's like, what is the most pragmatic way to improve Earth for everyone, people, but also the creatures that share the Earth with us. And I realized just like, well, population's growing, people need protein. It's an essential macronutrient. Eating protein from the ocean, like if people don't eat fish, where will the protein come from? It'll come from land-based sources. Land-based sources of protein are the worst for the planet, the worst in every metric you can have. Land-based protein is much worse for the ocean than fish, and so more people should be eating fish. Um, and that's better for the planet. So that's sort of like how my philosophy on conservation evolved. It's just like I want to conserve as much of the earth as is possible, while also like, yeah, I want to conserve as much of the earth as possible pragmatically. And pragmatism means like honestly looking at like food systems and people and the other part of that philosophy is just like I will never ever advocate for like a reduction in like living quality or living standards for humans. I don't think that like that is like devolution or degrowth. I do not believe in that at all. So I want people to thrive, people all over the world to thrive. I want them to be well fed. I want them to be healthy. And I want all of those goals to be accomplished. And I know that like there are environmental trade-offs that you have to make. All forms of food production have environmental impacts, every single one. Um, and so I want to just feed the world as pragmatically as possible. And to me, that means like catching and eating as much fish as is sustainable.
yeah, and that makes a lot of sense to me when you consider the earth is, what is it, 75%, 80% water, right? I'm just telling it. Yeah. So if you conceptualize that, it's like having your yard and say you have 4 dogs and you only use half the yard and you wonder why there's shit everywhere. Like, or you know what I mean? Like, and not even use half the yard, usually a quarter of the yard. And then if you let them have access to the entire yard, it's going to be much better. You're going to have overall better wealth, better grass, better everything. you know? Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it does. And I think as far as us doing our part, we could be more efficient at, like you said, we could reduce our footprint on things by being more efficient, but not sacrificing our quality of life. For sure.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
while we're on the topic, we go off about power and energy sources a lot, and my kids all know how I feel about it. And I think the quest, I had this conversation with the guys on the ship, the quest for, um, who are very like more green, like not more, but just, um, they're more leaning towards like, hey, I don't even know how to describe it, but we had great conversations because you could have heard a pin drop when I told everybody I spearfished. Um, but some people, not everybody, but like the guys I had conversations with, it was like my whole thing about solar energy was like, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. My buddy's contradiction to that was like, yeah, but in our quest for alternative energy, we'll find maybe it's not worth the squeeze, but it's a stepping stone in getting to the point where we can find better ways to do things. So we've got to try and do, and I agree with him 100%. I think the problem is when money gets involved in politics, people start selling one thing that it's not what it is, and then they try to sell it to force it, to for their own benefit, either the political benefit or for either side, either political benefit or financial, just whatever. Um, but like, I would say like nuclear power is amazing, but the consequences if you don't manage it, and anybody knows, anybody who argues with me, I don't know. The state cannot manage crap, dude. Like if anybody's never been in the military and seen this like firsthand, like so much effort and just, I mean, whatever. They don't manage things well. Private parties do typically manage things better because there's more of a impact to them if they don't financially and everything else. Like the San Onofre power plant, they shut it down because it was leaking and it wasn't managed. But that thing, I encourage anybody to do this. If anybody's been to Vegas and seen that solar panel, like monstrosity in the desert, where they have all the solar panels. I don't know if you've ever been there and you see like there's that light and they're all reflected and all this stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that big thing. So I recently, and I just said private people, but recently that I heard that thing's going bankrupt too. Whatever, because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze and the operational cost and the maintenance cost and all of that. If you look at the amount of power that one and again, I'm just picking on that one because there's got to be a better way. So it's stepping stone to get to something better, great. But if you look at the power that one creates, the energy that one creates, compared to maybe like the El Diablo Canyon, Diablo Canyon power plant, and the amount of energy that one creates, it's not even in the same ballpark. So if you look at, you got to weigh out the pros and cons, I guess, is what I'm saying. And those power plants, man, like I'm all for nuclear energy, but the problem is you have to manage it correctly. And do you trust the people managing it? I feel like on the private side, they'll protect the brand as best they can until it melts down and blows up. And on the government side, they're just sometimes incompetent at protecting. I don't know. But the end result is it's a much bigger impact than say if a solar panel doesn't work, So, but having solar in my house in Mexico, a lot of batteries, a lot of solar panels, minimal energy. We always, you can only run this at night and all that. So there's trade-offs to everything. Um, but I don't even know where I was going with this. And here I am talking, and it's your hour. But
So
I just think I
I
just think
think
there's ways to do things, like that could be considered and not demonized, I guess, if we're trying to improve our quality of life and our footprint.
oh yeah, I think energy abundance is a part of is like a part of like good human life. Like we need more energy to to run everything. yeah, we need more energy. Um, we we do need that energy to be carbon free if possible.
Right.
I think what a lot of people who don't love green energy, some of the attitudes that I've encountered are can just sort of be solved by it's just like just like energy abundance, energy of all kinds, and then also just acknowledging that fossil fuels improved lives around the world. Billions of people benefited from fossil fuels for sure.
Right.
Like our life is so much better now because of fossil fuel. Um, and so just like I think that goes a little unacknowledged, and just people need to acknowledge that, just like, yes, like I benefited from fossil fuels. You benefited from fossil fuels. Fossil fuels were an incredibly important part of the human story on Earth, like without any question. Um, it's just it's just older technology that is getting that like needs to get replaced, and like that replacement will happen no matter what you do, no matter what I do. Like 100 years from now, almost everything will be electric, and most of that electricity will be green. It's inevitable. I think what most people are fighting about or thinking about is just like the speed at which the transition happens. Um, I think the transition should happen as fast as possible, with also like the caveats of not reducing like human flourishing. Um, but the faster we do it, like a way, it's also very abstract. Climate change is extremely abstract because the numbers are so small as well. I'm just like, all right, the overall global temperature is warming 2 degrees. Like, what does that mean? Like 2 degrees is nothing. Like we feel a 50-degree swing every day from morning to night. So what does 2 degrees mean? It means it's tough to like really describe, but just like if you can like I think in very quantitatively, if you just think of just like if there was a metric called suffering, just like human suffering, animal suffering, any kind of suffering, that is a metric that I am oriented towards. It's just like I want to reduce suffering around the world, no matter what. Just like every kind of suffering, just reduce. Like there is suffering in the world, there will always be suffering, but just can we reduce it a little bit? And there is a reduction in suffering from like 2.2 degrees to 2 or 2 to 1.8. So every amount of like little incremental change does reduce suffering. And that is like a like a hurricane hits and the storm surge is not as bad as it would have been. The storm surge is bad, but it destroys $5 billion in property instead of 7. So that is like, and those are things that are like really hard to think about because these are like things in the future and theoretical. So I totally understand like a lot of like climate change skepticism because it is this like very abstract concept, and it's like it doesn't materially impact your day ever, but it is just like something that is like happening in the background. And like I that like that metric of suffering is like that's just my personal like mental model of how I think about climate change and why I am like motivated to 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 stop it as fast as possible, like while also like totally understanding that like fossil fuels reduced a lot of suffering before this, and now it's just there was some externality that we didn't know about until relatively recently, and we're just going to keep course correcting. That's sort of the story of science and the story of humans in general. Just like do something until something better comes along, and if something in the past wasn't great, we fix it and move on. And that's just what I think this is. It has just become like a little bit politicized, which is too bad.
No,
Um,
I love what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, because it
Did
really is
you
just like a scientific thing.
and all, do you remember like the ozone situation when
Mhm.
we were kids growing up. I don't know
Yeah.
if you were, yeah. Um, do you know with all your reading and stuff? I mean, my understanding was we banned aerosols or
Mhm.
some chemical in there, and it
Yeah.
actually did repair itself.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
That's so. What do you think now, like with climate change? Because I do think so much of the time it feels like, okay, great. What do you want me to do? Like I like I could get an electric car, but then I gotta do this or that, and there's no infrastructure here or this or that.
Mhm.
Like they want to go to full electric in California, and it's like great, but what's your plan? To like how are we gonna do this when we have a rolling blackout every time there's a heat wave or something?
Mhm.
Um, what do you think we, just as human beings, every day in our own house, can do to actually help improve the environment?
So there's been a good amount of research. This is always the thing. It's like climate change and conservation are these like huge, giant topics that are more like structural. Like any big change is structural. Like it's some kind of policy that's passed. So I generally tell people that, but I'll get to it in a moment. But there is research on like what do individuals have the most control over? What do individuals like? How do individuals make the biggest personal impact? So the first thing I always generally say is um, vote for candidates that have your environmental values. That's the number one thing, because large change happens at the policy level, at like the large government level or like corporate level. That's where the big changes come from. So I generally tell people the best thing to do is just vote vote that way. That's the number one thing to do. After that, like actual what has the most impact, um eating is your diet. Your diet has the biggest thing because there's a very large range of environmental impacts on your diet. And beef and other ruminant animals have like just physiologically they require a ton of land, a ton of space. So a lot of forest is cleared to grow livestock essentially. Um, about half of all land on Earth is given to farming food. Um, so it's kind of funny. Like I always think just like when I talk to some pretty hardcore environmentalists. Um, the farm is always seen as this sort of like idyllic countryside thing, but it's like that farm was once a forest. That farm, like every farm you've ever seen, was once a natural ecosystem that was completely destroyed to grow food. Um, every single thing you've ever eaten was grown somewhere that used to be a natural ecosystem. And that's fine. That was a good trade-off that humans made to develop land to grow food. Um, different foods have different impacts. The biggest impact are generally terrestrial protein. It's like livestock, essentially, and especially ruminant animals like cows and goats and sheep. Um, so I still eat those. Cow to me is the most delicious land animal. I eat cow. Um, but I do I I replace like when I can, I replace cow with something lower impact. I think fish is the perfect thing. Generally, there's hardly any environmental impact from fishing. Commercial fishing in general. There's very little carbon. There's no inputs. There's no fertilizer, pesticide. You're just harvesting a wild animal, um, which I know people don't like that idea, but like my pragmatic brain says, well, no inputs, no freshwater use, no pesticide, low carbon, healthy, lean, delicious. Like just replacing some beef with seafood is a really good way to do it. Um, that's the number one thing to do for people is their diet. So food waste is another one. It's related to your diet. It's just like don't waste food. Um, eat. I would never tell anyone not to eat meat. Just like eating a little bit less or changing the type of meat that you eat. That's basically the largest lever that individuals can pull is that like individual diets.
That makes a lot of sense. No, that does. I was even thinking as you were talking about, like hunting your own food that grows
Yeah.
naturally and wild.
Yeah.
It doesn't change and impact the environment at all if you do it right, but it's definitely, you're not chopping down a rainforest to put up
Yeah.
stuff so you can make patchouli oil or whatever it is,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, that's some really good insight. Thank you so much. So what do you think, like, you live in LA now, or are you?
Um, my girlfriend and I are actually currently on the East Coast. Her family's from New Jersey, so I'm in New Jersey right now. But we're spending the summer here. We generally live in San Diego.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, I remember Dr. Ray told me. Where in Jersey? I lived in Jersey for a year.
Oh, right now we're in Metuchen, New Jersey.
Where's that? That's not
Metuchen,
southern.
Metuchen. No, Metuchen is like it's a commuter town in New York City. It's like a 45-minute train ride to New York
Oh,
City.
yeah, I'm familiar with like Newark and Elizabethtown and all that,
Yeah, it's
Sea
not too far from.
Caucus and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
it's
Yeah.
not
So
far from there. Yeah.
I was in Fort Monmouth for a year when I was in the Army. All that
Okay.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not
Uh,
familiar with it really.
yeah.
We're spending some time
Jer-
with my girlfriend's family.
Jersey's pretty it is really pretty when you,
It
especially,
is. It is.
yeah.
It it has a reputation. Um, the reputation is probably not deserved. I'll admit it as someone who likes to give my girlfriend and her family a lot of crap for New Jersey. I'll say it is. It can be. There are definitely parts that are very beautiful, especially the coast. The Jersey Shore
Yeah.
um, gets made fun of because of the TV show, but the Jersey Shore is pretty nice.
And to be fair to Jersey, I mean, those people come from Staten Island. Most of them are like come from other places. That was my first, at 18 years old. That was my first encounter with life outside of the West Coast, was getting to
Mm.
the Jersey Shore
Hmm.
and hearing people talk. And I thought that was really wild.
That's
Like the stereotypical, before the show was out, Jersey
oh,
Shore. And
the
when that show,
accents. The
yeah,
accents are crazy out here.
when
Crazy.
that show came out, I told my wife, Mike, that is exactly how it is. Like, at least in the Jersey Shore, like
Yeah,
summertime. Yeah.
it
Um,
is. Yeah,
no,
the
it's
accents are
funny.
crazy.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to dive out there at all?
No, I haven't actually. Um, Last year we were visiting her family again, and I saw a hammerhead. Or I knew it was a shark. I didn't know what kind of shark. Later there was like some Facebook videos that got sent around. But I was in the water, uh, just like swimming, and there was just like a shark fin just right out the waves, and I was like, oh. But, so I got kind of spooked by that, honestly. That's like the water here is like pretty. It's pretty. I like clear water. I like clear water. I feel very safe in the kelp, so I don't have an issue diving in like murky kelp. Just because I feel safe in the kelp. Um, but I don't love murky water exposed. Just like I'm not afraid of sharks. That's what I would say. Like I know they're out there. I feel like pretty comfortable generally. Um, I feel totally safe in clear water, but it's pretty murky here.
But how do you feel free diving when you're just trying to breathe up and hanging, you're in the open and you know it's
I,
deep below you?
yeah. Definitely the first few times when I went out with you gotta have Lance on the podcast. Lance is I don't know if if there's like a better legend of freediving in Southern California than him. Definitely other spear fishermen, but Lance is freediver extraordinary. But he's crazy with his like freediving setup. He's got this like little inflatable boat, and we would just take the inflatable boat like a couple miles offshore, drop a line into the abyss, and that's where we would dive. The first few times I was definitely nervous, but then it was just like, wait, we're in the middle of nowhere. Like there's no structure around. Like we're diving in like 1,200 feet of water. Like there's nothing around. So I got over that pretty quick. But yeah, I did do like one spearfishing trip on the backside of Catalina once, which is a pretty sharky place.
Hollingsworth
And
Bank or what? Was
yeah,
that
it was
where
Farms. Yeah, we
yeah.
were off Farnsworth Bank.
Yeah.
And the water was it was poop water. It was so murky. So murky, but like I was like on a boat with like four other guys. I was relatively like new, and it was like, like that like spearing situation where you're just like, oh, I'm afraid, but I don't want to like show anyone else that I'm afraid, just like, and like it was like me and two other like young guys, and then like an old head, Harry, who runs like Freedive and Spear in Hermosa. I
I
don't know
don't know him,
if you know
no.
Harry. Okay. Harry took us out on his boat, and Harry was just like, "Come on, guys, let's go, let's go." And the three younger guys, we all like kind of looked at each other like, "All right, like if Harry's doing it, I guess we have to do it." Got in the water. I swam around for probably like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I was in the water I was so scared the whole time. It's just like, what am I doing? This is insane. This is so crazy. Got back to the boat, and like the other two young guys were on the boat, and all three of us just like looked at each other just like, you guys were scared, right? Like, yeah. And it was just like we finally like acknowledged like how scared we were, and Harry was just like, you guys are crazy. So definitely don't love murky water is what I'll
I
say. And
I
New
have been
Jersey
there.
it's a lot,
Yeah.
it's pretty murky, so
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think
love
you
the
got to.
murk.
I think with Jersey, you got to get offshore. You might want to link up with Pete Correa, like where he's out there. He does, but I think you got to get offshore for those big eye tuna and all that stuff
Yeah. Oh,
on the
oh
Gulf
yeah.
Stream.
That would be amazing. That would be
Yeah,
amazing. I'm a terrible spear fisherman though. I
that's fine. Me
Yeah.
too.
I know. I'm a good free diver, terrible spear fisherman. Um, yeah, I don't know. I love lobster diving. I still lobster dive as often as I can. That's my favorite.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, lobster diving's
Just
pretty
fun.
goal orientated. It's fun.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
lot of
You know what?
lobster.
That's what it is. I just
You're
yeah.
gonna see lobster.
I'm
I
good
mean,
with like that. I'm good with just like, all right, goal, outcome. Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
that.
too many times with diving, depending on the situation, it's in Southern California, it feels hopeless. Sometimes you just go, it's like, okay. And my wife will be like, well, at least you got to get in the water. You enjoy it. I'm like, babe, I've spent years in this water. I know what's there. And if I don't see what I'm looking for, I get bored. My ADD kicks in.
Mm,
I was like, well, at least with lobster, I always say, like, with my experience in my job has hooked me up with lobster. It's like, I know where they are. Like,
mm.
I'll just go get them. I don't need to look for them. And then we'll eat dinner tonight. It'll be
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
That's a good
Cool.
thing to have. But
Yeah, that's
yeah.
good. Everyone's got their little spots. Yeah,
Do you,
we had our little like lobster spot.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. Do
Yeah.
you have any like spearfishing goals or things you want to do
Um,
in the future, or freediving goals, like any depth goals or bottom
um,
times?
I definitely want to just. I've been out of it for a little while. I was training for a bunch of competitions that all got canceled during COVID, and then I got back into my training to do a competition, and I've always been stopped by my equalization, like uh like my throat specifically, um like so I ended up yeah, getting pretty frustrated. I like squeezed a bunch. um had just like I just I don't know what it is about my trachea. I have a really tight trachea, and just like really sensitive. So I got pretty frustrated, and then um I had knee surgery. So I've been like out of freediving for a little bit, but my goals are to basically get back in once I once we move back to San Diego in the fall, I'll be like I've been hooked up with some of the groups there, but I'll rejoin some of those like deep dive groups. Um, there's a great group in Southern California that I used to dive with as well. They go like I'm sure everybody knows of this group, the one that out of Redondo Beach. They go off Veterans Park every weekend.
Yes.
Just wonderful people in that group. Um, so just I need to just get back into that, and then I don't know if we'll move back to Mexico. We've been thinking about it, but we'll see. As far as and then like yeah, I would like to get back into spearfishing. Um, when I was living in LA, it was like I would go to Catalina as often as I could, but like it's so hard. Like it's just hard to do that. And then like the easy like pushing the easy button is PV. And PV is just like Palos Verdes. It's just like it's very it's crowded. There's not a lot of like big calico left. You kind of just gotta like search around for stuff. Um, but I would like to shoot a white sea bass. That's like it's everybody's goal. You know, I've never shot. I've seen one a few times. I've never taken a shot on one. I would like to harvest a white sea bass. That is like my number one spearfishing goal. Which I know it's like everyone's goal, but that is
Yeah.
that is the fish that I would like to shoot more than any other.
Well, I'm really good at getting people their first sea bass.
Dude, let's go.
Me,
I'm
not so
back.
much. Yeah. That's a whole another topic for a whole other show.
I
Yeah.
need some of the magic sauce.
It's it's abusive relationship, those fish and me.
I get it.
Yeah. Oh. But yes, very cool. Yeah, it's funny, the whole LA scene to me. My buddy lived in Santa Monica, or that I think it was up Santa Mo- and we would go dive PV a couple of times, and just to go and be in like, I mean, I thought San Diego was a big city, but just to be in that chaos, and then it's weird you
Yeah.
have this like escape right there, but everybody in that area that dives or anything is going there. Either to scuba
Right.
dive is going there. Fortunately, like you said, like you need a boat because Catalina's close, and that's really the only that's really good. I mean, in San Diego, we have Mexico. We could just go down there if we want.
And La
That's
Jolla,
a
I think La Jolla is huge. Like the kelp bed of La Jolla is like I've only snorkeled and dove on it like once or twice, but it's so big, which is
Yeah, they've extended. They
cool.
have the MPAs there, the two MPAs, but they the kelp is gone on the north corner. The kelp has really gotten hammered,
Hmm.
but there's there's so many reefs along there and other
Yeah,
kelp spots, and a lot of it too is depending on the current. Kelp be subsurface. There's a lot more kelp than people think sometimes, but
yeah,
yeah, it's an amazing little
yeah,
peninsula that sticks out there. And then,
yeah. Having the reef is so nice. Like it's
yeah, it
just
really is.
a lot of people don't realize like LA is built on Santa Monica Bay. Yeah, but Santa Monica Bay is just a bay of sand. There are no reefs on Santa Monica Bay. So like if you live in LA and you want to spearfish, you gotta go to Malibu, which is far and really inconvenient to get to, or Palos Verdes. So yeah, excited about spending more time in San Diego and just ever, at least compared to what I was used to before.
Yeah. Even in Orange County, it doesn't compare. I mean, it's so much better than in Orange County, I think, you know. Um, well, Max, thank you for your time. I appreciate everything and sharing your insights and throwing out your opinion. I really like that. Um, and I wish the best of luck to you. Thank you.